me.
And I understand it.
And I apologize, and I understand that I've been in a bad place.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to you. I'm sorry to them.
There's always been a tense undertone in the Brown household, a lingering envy and silent grudge, particularly regarding Robyn. But today we're putting the focus on someone who has literally reinvented her life. Janelle Brown, hi guys, welcome back, I'm Sienna. And this is TLC Future, your home for the most up-to-date and uplifting news from the reality stars you love. Let's discuss Janelle Brown's new fearless venture. Following years of complicated plural marriage to Kody Brown, Janelle is taking back control. In the most surprising way, by taking a leap into business with a whopping 156-acre land purchase in North Carolina, Janelle wed Kody Brown in 1993 and became part of a polygamous family life with his other wives. Meri and Christine, she proved to be steadfast in her loyalty and strong-willed. Over the years, she had 6 kids with Kody, stood by him through thick and thin, and even accepted his 4th marriage to Robyn graciously. But behind the scenes, Janelle was giving up more than she admitted, whether it was financially, contributing to Kody's endeavors, or shelving her own aspirations. She always put the family first. Unfortunately, her dedication was never properly recognized by Kody, who appeared to be more and more interested in Robyn. And then the final straw in 2021. Copying Christine, Janelle finally divorced Kody. And that's when all of it began to shift, no longer bound by the draining realities of the plural marriage. Janelle understood that it wasn't too late to pursue her own aspirations. In 2022, she took a life-changing step to North Carolina. It wasn't merely a move, it was a new beginning. Janelle made headlines when she purchased a massive 156-acre plot of land in the scenic town of Shaka, in Nita, just 30 minutes away from her daughter Madison Brush's home. This property marked the beginning of something truly ambitious. Janelle's investment wasn't just about owning land, it was about building something lasting. She poured her finances, heart, and energy into launching Tata Farms, her very own agricultural business. And this isn't a hobby project. It's an ambitious farming operation that's a testament to her new independence. But with great ambition comes great risk. Taking care of a property of this magnitude demands constant upkeep, significant investment, and sheer devotion. As Janelle ages, the duties associated with the farm will likely draw her away from her children and put a strain on her time, energy, and financial horizon. Beyond that, Janelle isn't going to back down. Alternatively, she's just getting warmed up. She's already started developing portions of the property into a stunning flower farm and is still expanding Tata Farms with the help of her daughter, Madison. This is Janelle's first big solo business endeavor since her breakup with Kody, and it's clear she's giving it her all. The path forward won't be easy, but Janelle's story is nothing short of inspiring. From committed wife to solo entrepreneur, she's teaching us all that it's never too late to repurpose your narrative. So what lies ahead for Janelle and Tata Farms? Will this ambitious move bring long-term success, or new challenges stick around? We'll be covering every step of her journey right here on TLC Future. But Janelle didn't just stop at buying land. She boldly stepped into the world of business after a soft launch on social media. She invited her fans to explore her latest venture through the official TAF fam website. Janelle began offering more than just flowers. She launched a line of lifestyle basics, trendy tops, aprons, tote bags, cookbooks, kitchen towels, and even pre-curated Mother's Day gift baskets. There was no doubt Janelle was set to create something for herself. Nevertheless, not all was roses and flowers. There are some warning signs, and even her die-hard fan shave begun to pick up on them. Despite her drive, Janelle lacks experience in agriculture, and critics have already noted that her business plan is unclear. Her About Us and our story pages on the website discuss emotional safe havens and say little about the business's concrete objectives, leaving potential customers at a loss for what exactly Tata Farms has to offer. But where did the startup funds originate? That's where things get interesting. Old fans will recall the family's highly contentious Coyote Pass land in 2018. Janelle, Kody, and the other sister wives collectively bought a 14-acre tract in Fort Valley, Arizona. They saw it as the future home base for their polygamous family, paying close to $800 to bring it to life. Soon, however, after the family breaks up and marriages disintegrate, so do the Coyote Pass plans. Janelle and Meri bullied Kody into selling the property and splitting the proceeds, a decision that created some intense strife. The property was finally sold in 2025 for a whopping $1.5 million, and this is where Janelle made a smart decision. Both partners allegedly took home an equal share, more than $300 each for Janelle. That meant taking home more than twice
I do not want this property. I am very confident that Janelle feels the same way.
What she had initially put in it was a welcome financial victory, and it provided her with the means to put new life into her business ventures. But some fans ask, is she risking it all again? Whereas Janelle apparently does have faith in Tata Farms, there's concern that she's overdoing it too quickly. Few agree that saving part of her Coyote Pass profits could provide her with more long-term stability, particularly because this is her first individual business venture. Another complication in the mix, her business partner Janelle has been extraordinarily open about having struggled financially in the past, namely how under their polygamous arrangement, all family funds were pulled, each member of the household shared property, which rendered individual savings and independent choices almost impossible with that thought in mind. There are worries that leaping into another communal financial arrangement will bring the same issues later on. So is Janelle brave enough to take a step forward or reliving old mistakes? In new terms, tune in because this is only the beginning. In our next segment, we'll dive into how Janelle plans to grow Tata Farms, the challenges she's facing behind the scenes, and what this all means for her future independence. But even as Janelle steps into a new chapter, old patterns may be quietly repeating themselves over the years. Janelle struggled to keep tabs on the family's financial dealings as the years went by. It became increasingly difficult to keep tabs on where the funds were being spent. She's been candid about seeing Kody raid communal funds for expenses she never agreed to. Transgressions that left her not only financially depleted but emotionally drained. Now, with Tata Farms, it looks like Janelle might be treading down a similar path instead of operating the business by herself. Janelle is venturing out with her daughter Madison and son-in-law Caleb on the surface. It's a lovely picture, 3 generations pulling together, creating a legacy. But as many observers note, combining family and money, particularly in big undertakings, can quickly become complicated. What happens when the business takes off as Tata Farms continues to grow? Questions could arise about each family member's degree of participation. If Janelle invests more money, time, or emotional capital, then her co-owner's resentment will begin to ferment. It's a scenario with which fans of the show are already familiar, given how often she was forced to deal with this type of situation within the plural marriage home. Might Janelle again come to regret sharing property and financial burdens with loved ones? Yet there are indications of personal development aside from the corporate front. Janelle and Meri, those 2 women whose only common denominator once was their shared husband, have long drawn the attention and sympathy of sister wives audiences. Their bond, forged from years of tension and coldly polite distance, seldom evidenced any true affection. Most of their interactions were strained, bound by duty and spiritual ideals. But now, something is different. In a soft, understated moment, fans caught a glimpse of bonding between Janelle and Meri. It wasn't dramatic or tear-stained, but it suggested a thawing of decades of icy emotion after years of distance and silence. These 2 women, former next-door neighbors in a complicated family matrix, might be heading toward mutual respect and perhaps even healing. Janelle has found self-sufficiency in nature, and habit. Meri has opted for solitude, introspection, and emotional detachment. They're alike in so many ways, but what unites them now is the common experience of surviving a broken family system. So as Janelle establishes her business, Andre establishes her life. The question is, will she keep repeating the money patterns of her past, or finally create a future that's all her own? Their common ambitions, raising children, providing financially, and remaining true to their religious traditions, were never sufficient to close the emotional gap. Between them, Meri was the first to join. Their mutual husband, with a sense of tradition, fidelity, and the spiritual aspiration of creating a powerful, coherent family in her heart. She envisioned a busy home, one house full of laughter, love, and the strong bond of sister wives moving in harmony. Along came Janelle, practical, ambitious, and independent. Meri craved emotional closeness, whereas Janelle valued structure and independence. These differing methods define the early dynamics of their relationship. Meri, who is now a single mother, embraced solitude and protected her privacy. Janelle, juggling a big household and a full-time job. Meri craved emotional closeness, whereas Janelle valued structure and independence. These differing methods defined the early dynamics of their relationship. Meri, who was now a single mother, embraced solitude and protected her privacy. Janelle, juggling a big household and a full-time job, was usually at her wits' end. Though they lived in close proximity, they never shared domestic work. And when they did, miscommunication trumped cooperation even. So beneath the surface tension, there lay a silent understanding, both sacrificed for a family that did not necessarily reciprocate. Both women were pillars of the household economy, balancing childcare, career, and emotional labor.
Over 4 years ago, we've got a big payment coming due, and with the family falling apart, we got to figure out what we're going to do.
They invested time, money, and dreams in a shared future that never fully arrived. Investments were placed, promises were made, but profits were elusive, and perhaps no dream had represented their aspirations and disappointment. More than Coyote Pass in the expansive Arizona desert, Coyote Pass was to be the future of the family. Each of the wives would have her own house children, would play, grandchildren would come, the land would become a physical representation of their solidarity. But that dream never materialized. No foundations were ever laid, no houses were ever constructed. Instead, Coyote Pass was an eloquent monument to what was lost, a dusty piece of land that bound them all to an eroded ideal. Recently, Janelle and Meri visited that location, not to reconcile, but to conduct business. In the latest season of Sister Wives, viewers saw the duo connect at Coyote Pass. But this wasn't a hug fest. It was a necessity-driven meeting. Mutual decision to settle unresolved business, sell off the land, and finally, sever the final financial connection between them and their shared heritage. They gathered to settle unresolved business on Arizona ground ownership, partition, and determinations long over. It had been months, if not years, since they sat across from one another. But time, it appears, has a subtle way of gentling even the toughest spots. Both women were at a juncture working through post-divorce realities that looked bleakly different, but felt painfully similar. What started as a practical meeting gradually became something else. They talked not as co-wives, but as women who'd loved deeply, hurt deeply, and weathered a shared silence. There was no yelling, no blaming, no hanging on to old roles. Just quiet honesty. Meri, once fiercely devoted to a man who no longer stood by her side, appeared transformed, less bound by obligation, more led by clarity. Janelle, long respected for her pragmatism and independence, found herself giving way to vulnerability, considering that strength could also be openness. In that instant, something subtle but deep shifted. They weren't allies yet, they weren't friends, but they were not enemies anymore. There was an air of respect between them, a shared acknowledgement of hardship, sacrifices, parallel, and the burden of dreams. Never wholly realized their talk did not rebuild their relationship, but it placed the first quiet stone in something new. A foundation not founded on mutual husbands or barren lots of earth, but on knowing now, as both Meri and Janelle move forward, albeit alone but not in ignorance. They bear not only the wisdom of what was lost, but the precious chance of healing where there was only distance before. Because sometimes the most resilient connections are not made from where we began, but from how we persevered. A new page was turned, not with fanfare, but with ripples that unsettled the base of everything that had been there for. When she arrived, she didn't simply bring fresh life, she brought change, the type that silently replaces what used to be known. Her presence wasn't intrusive by design, but its effect was undeniable. In a home founded on mutual sacrifice and decades of implicit comprehension, she was the variable that nobody knew, seasoned, forceful, and emotionally present, in ways that felt alien to those who preceded her. She wasn't beginning from zero like the rest. Had she knew what loss was, she had already reconstructed herself once before. Her desire for closeness, validation, and visibility wasn't unreasonable. It was human, but it conflicted with the silent suffering that had long characterized the women. Already there for years, they had equated love with survival and intimacy, with compromise, and now someone had come along who demanded more and got more. The man at the center of it all saw a second chance. In her, a chance to rewrite old regrets with someone who didn't bear them. Her adoration, her radiance, these were salved to the pride he hadn't known, was bruised, but adoration has a price tag, and reveling in that heat, he turned his back, if not physically, then emotionally, on the dying coals of old commitments. Undefined coals that once sustained a home through chilly nights of uncertainty, separation, and sacrifice. Undefined, and thus while one love flowered, others softly perished. Undefined, not of jealousy, but of abandonment, not due to her, but due to what her coming uncovered, that the equilibrium had ever been more tenuous than they cared to acknowledge their reality was. This the family had long relied on emotional repression, masquerading as tranquility. Her coming did not shatter that fantasy. It simply shed light on it, and under it, Illumination, each woman was forced to look at who she was not only as a wife, but as an individual. What does it mean to be valued? Where does spiritual unity end in self? Betrayal begin, and how long can one wait for a love that has clearly moved on? Initially, the tension wasn't loud. It was smoldering smiles, were too tight voices, too courteous, and support too obliging. It wasn't rejection, but it wasn't belonging either. Behind the closed doors, what began as personal uncertainties quietly transformed into mutual discomfort. What had once been conversations full of collective memories and sacrifice were now charged with resentment. The new woman felt it. The brief glances. The silent pauses in speech, the laughter that died. The instant she entered a room, yet she pushed on her exclusion, did not make her withdraw. It fed her desire to be noticed. Whether deliberate or not, her behavior tended to put her in the center of attention. She spoke needs the others had learned to suppress. Long ago, she celebrated birthdays, made demands, staked out space, oblivious or possibly reluctant to see that her presence was overrunning a fragile equilibrium. What she perceived as a push to fit in was seen as crossing boundaries. Her efforts to become part of established family rhythms felt more like intrusions than additions, even her children innocent to their fault came to represent an invasion, particularly as their demands started overriding. Others, it was becoming impossible to overlook the man who had once vowed balance was gradually leaning to one side. One house felt more full, more warm, while the others felt like add-ons. His words of encouragement grew scarce, his visits grew shorter. Time that once belonged to the group was now fragmented, rearranged, or lost altogether. The original three women, previously tied together through endurance and common cause, approached re-examining their role in this coming apart at the base of this union, not due to betrayal per se, but due to something far more corrosive, emotional disequilibrium, a whisper, drifting that incrementally ripped at the fabric of cohesion and the woman who'd come seeking refuge. Connection and sisterhood. She as well started re-examining what those words actually entailed. She leaned further into marriage to her husband, sometimes bemoaning the demise of the family unit, but more frequently behaving in manners that kept her as the central partner. Although she had flashes of remorse for disintegration of the greater unit, their actions communicated exclusivity, consolidation, and a stealthy plan to establish permanence. Eventually, she and her husband were alone, the once lively home once filled with meals shared, overlapping parenting, and laughter born of collective mayhem broke apart. Where trust had been a web that connected many, it now connected only two emotional doors that had once swung open with ease, now closed forever. She became her husband's chief confidant at times. Her influence was overt at other times, subtle. Her voice directed routines, remolded decisions, and challenged fairness frequently in ways that redirected benefits to her household. The transformation wasn't overlooked. Every one of the original women reacted in a different way. Some departed quietly, with a resigned peace that what they had created no longer belonged to them. It wasn't anger that propelled them, but the gradual awareness that they were now extras in a life they once co-wrote. The lack of emotional give and take, not betrayal, was what ultimately shattered. Their determination triumph for the woman at the center came at a price. She'd won the partnership, she wanted the love. She struggled to be placed first in, but at the expense of the values which had once governed the family: unity in diversity, power in numbers, the unobtrusive loveliness of common sacrifice, all lost to a single bond, and the reverberation of what had been she and her husband now progress as one united entity, not as heads of a sprawling, interconnected clan. Memories of what was lost continue to inhabit the spaces once warmed by communal laughter. Her narrative continues to be the topic of discussion among those who bore witness to the transformation, even as new pages turn. Her story is a mirror of the complexity of entering an entrenched emotional order. It illustrates the vulnerability of mutual love, when fairness is not even, and how the quest for recognition, when too insistent or too singular, can unite or quietly dismantle everything. Now there are fewer voices around the once shared table. The sounds of many have turned into solitary ways. Far echoes of what had been her presence is indisputable, but it bears triumph and the subdued pain of falling apart, a paradox